that are being showered upon us. To all those who are feeling lonely, sad, abandoned. May they receive a loving hug and find out that they have never been alone, and there are loved ones who await their openness so they can cherish a new opportunity in life. May you guide us through this day. May we feel your protection as you grant us permission to begin our beautiful day of learning and serving together. And so be it. Okay, special program, huh? Incredibles with Jesus.
Wow.
Never heard that before. You need to tell us. So we have Miss Luciana, Miss Deise, who will in this first part lead the session, and then the second part, Miss Leticia and Mr. John. Enjoy, friends. The capes, the masks. Come on, Scott. You are the incredible. Okay. You'll be there later, I bet. Especially at the movie part. Okay, friends. So, yeah, there'll be a movie. Can you believe it? We're allowed to play the movie in the center. The good spirits are really good. Okay, so let me open here. We have our beautiful program today. All right. So, from miracles to healing, the Spirit of Truth shared with all of us through the mediums at Kardec's time, that we shall instruct ourselves and also love one another. Well, love, it's up to each one of us. But instruct, we can more extensively approach it like together, right? So, instructions given in the book Genesis. This year, 150 years of this book. And we wonder why. Why? The good spirits, inspired Kardec to bring us that much information in that book, because it's a book that is barely studied. And we don't think the good spirits sent the books for mere knowledge, because Spiritism is the promised consoler. So any message comes to boost our feeling about ourselves, about life, making life more intelligible in a way, feeling wise as well. So the book Genesis has several parts. We're not going to have time to talk about it all. So we were allowed to select a specific part that is more correlated to the special month of December as well, which is about the Christ conscious awareness, which is about Christmas, right? So we're talking about what many people dream of every day, miracles. Who doesn't dream of a miracle? But do miracles exist? What does Spiritism say about miracles? Because if we keep waiting for it and it doesn't happen, where is the start button? Huh? Where is it? Is there one? What are we missing? So we need to know how to trigger that miracle we've been waiting for. Is that possible? Oh, we'll find out. And then the ultimate healing. We all wait, right? Especially winter season, you get a cold. And we keep reading these books like, oh my gosh, it's almost like a potion book. You keep reading. You put everything together and yet it doesn't turn out to be the healing potion. What are we missing? What is it? So what is the foundation of miracles and healing according to Spiritism? So we have a teamwork effort, of course always in two realms, but we have friends who have assigned specific parts so we can more dynamically address these topics. We have our friend Sheyne Martin, who has been with us for a while, the Spirit side of Virginia, but comes from Richmond, where there is a Spiritist society there as well. We had this event there in October, and now we are repeating it here because this is a must study for all of us. And then Correa is going to come and tell us about a second part in regards to our thoughts, from miracles to thoughts. I will come later to tell you a little bit more about the dynamics of healing according to the book Genesis, followed by 3 healings that Jesus performed and how Spiritism addresses it. So Luciana, Palloma, and Deise will break them down for us in the Spiritist point of view. After this session of instructions, we will offer the spiritual treatment. Meanwhile, the children will be entertained educationally, and after we finish it all, we're gonna have our lunch, right? Miraculous lunch.
Healing lunch.
Healing
food.
Healing, exactly. And for those who can stay after lunch, we're going to put together the bags for the homeless. Okay? So, we're going to ask our dear Sheyne Martin to come and begin helping us understand what Kardec explains in regards to miracle. Yes, please.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Good morning still to everybody. Pleasure and an honor to be here with you today talking about the book Genesis from Allan Kardec. And as we are eternally indebted to Kardec for his devotion and work with Spiritism, those are the 5 foundational books of Spiritism. And the one that we're going to talk here today, and of course you see there that he was with us from October 3rd, 1804 to March 31st, 1869. And throughout that time, he has published those 5 books and also the Spiritist magazine of the time. And we have other works, posthumous works from him as well. So for our knowledge, and this is my book Genesis, but you know that's just a different look, a different cover, is divided in 3 parts, as Vanessa says. And the part 1 is Genesis, the genesis of everything that you know, the creation as we know it. Then we have a second part of miracles, that's the part that we're going to talk today. And the third part is predictions, a new generation and different cataclysm and different things that happen in the world. So just for us to know the structure of the book, for us to understand a little bit of where we're going to be. But today, specifically, we're going to talk about understanding miracles. So what is a miracle? So are we experiencing miracles in our daily life? So are you and I miracles in a sense? So we'll see. Yes, we are. But how do we define miracles? So it comes from the Latin word mirare, to admire. And throughout time, people have assigned the definition of miracles to different things. A lot of times, in the theological sense, in the religious sense, it goes from something that cannot be understood or explained, and it has to be extraordinary. So the full definition that we have today is an extraordinary event that manifests divine intervention in human affairs, or an extremely outstanding or unusual event, thing, or accomplishment. But now, as today in 2018, we have more knowledge of the natural laws and the physical laws than we had back 2,000 years ago. So throughout time, things that humans assign as miracles may have changed, because now we understand a little bit more about behind the scenes. For example, as it brings on this chapter, the laws of physics. Someone who is able to fly a kite and cause a lightning to strike a tree may have been seen sometime in the past as miraculous event. Someone who had the power. As we understand, in the theological sense, the church has kind of pushed the miracle definition towards the realm of something that cannot be explained. It has to be extraordinary, it has to be unusual, supernatural. Why? Because this way, being unusual, isolated, outside of natural laws, then the church was able to assign that to an intervention by God. So miraculously, something had to be so unusual that only God could perform that miracle over time. And we're going to see that Spiritism, while Spiritism does not perform miracles, that's a Kardec title within this chapter. So I'm already telling you that we're not performing any miracles. Even as you and I are experiencing already the presence of our guardian angels with us throughout the healing session, even before we get to the spiritual treatment, it's not miraculously. We're going to see throughout the talks and how that happens, the actions. But if we don't do miracles, we don't perform miracles, what exactly does Spiritism do? Right? So we have to kind of logically, this chapter goes. And Spiritism will reveal new laws to us. The laws of the spiritual principle, the laws of the spiritual realm, which are different from the laws that regulate the physical realm, as we know. And before we knew of Spiritism, miraculous events have occurred. We just couldn't explain it. And just because you can explain it doesn't mean that it's a miracle. It may be that you don't have the right equipment or the right laws to explain it. Also, we explain the phenomena, the miraculous or the spirit phenomena, within the jurisdiction of those laws. As if you go back to, for example, the Spirit's book, you have a third part just with the spiritual laws. So those phenomena are within those laws. We also demonstrate, the Spiritism demonstrate that spirit phenomena is one of the living forces of nature. So the spirit action upon our daily lives is within the realms of natural law, just as you and I are within the realm, in the physical realm of one of the living forces. And then we bring the phenomenon to the realm of natural effects, meaning we can explain what is happening behind the scenes, even as something is miraculous. So that's what Spiritisms bring to the explanation of these extraordinary events. So as we experience, for example, healing, or go to a healing medium and experience that healing of the physical body, as some of us perceive also, the healing of the spiritual body, that is not a miracle. We're going to see how those agents known as medium can intentionally provoke phenomena that can be called miraculous over time. But why does this spirit phenomenon seem supernatural? Kardec explains to us that is because it's produced with the help of agents that are not of the same ones that serve us. Why? Because when he was explaining all of this to us, we couldn't see spirits, right? So it's not the same as we able to work on a piece of wood and turn it into a table. Just the spirits are performing phenomena, but it's with different agents and different fluids that is different from what we perceive as around us in the physical realm. Also, he says, because it could not be studied by the current science of time. And he brings in the issue of, as science progresses, more of it is explained through the scientific knowledge of the planet that we are. More phenomena will be removed from the realm of miracles to the realm of nature, the realm of regular things that happens to us. So that's the beauty of Spiritism, that explain things we couldn't explain before. And he says, we couldn't study it back then with the science of the time. Think about how much we know nowadays in scientific methods, even in terms of medicine, the things we can do today. versus the thing we could do in the past. And he says, do we know the laws of the universe? Even if we can't explain today, it doesn't mean it's not explainable, because tomorrow we will progress, we'll gain more knowledge, and even in other worlds, they may have different phenomena and laws and events that we don't even dream about, because the beauty of God's creation is just so vast and so grand that we here on the planet that we may not explain some of the phenomena, but we don't know all the laws, so we couldn't explain it at the time. As the beauty of Spiritism is that we can add to what Kardec brings to us. So if you, for example, read the first part of Genesis, where he talks about the genesis of all things that you know, or in chapter 4 he talks about fluids and perispirit, and you go to the books of André Luiz, he brings more and more, one piece at a time. And whatever you and I are able to process and know at that time, or we're allowed to know. So that doesn't mean we can't explain, just we weren't at this time ready to know of that knowledge. Okay? So the spirit phenomena reveals what? The existence of the soul, its survival after death, its individuality. So spirits that used to be connected to a physical body, now they are in the spiritual realm, and they're performing this phenomena. And this phenomena consists in different modes of a manifestation of spirit. So you may have phenomena that is physical, or physical effects, just as Kardec was explaining how the tables were moving, or with the wraps. Or you may have phenomena in the realm of intelligent effects, when you have a medium that is able to receive an information from a spirit and transmit that to you and I, that is still within the spirit phenomena. So it's a spirit manifesting itself in different ways. So we just have to think about the spirit phenomena as something explainable by the laws of the spiritual realm. And he says on the book, thus the spirit phenomena is not supernatural or extraordinary. So all the spirit phenomena we know, it cannot be a miracle by definition, because remember, we started defining a miracle as something extraordinary out of the ordinary. But if we can explain it, it reveals the existence of spirits that are not in the physical body anymore, that survive the death of the body, the discarnation. Now we bring it to the realm of nature. It's not a supernatural anymore. Does that make sense? From the definition of what is a miracle to now knowing that it's not miraculous. It's just we can explain. And remember, we are going to see more. And as a recap, what is a spirit? So you and I are souls that are incarnated in the physical body. Spirits that, in the technical definition of Spiritism, is a soul that has survived the body. So you and I are souls incarnated in the physical realm, and the discarnate friends that are here with us are spirits, the ones that are attending also and being helped. The spirits act upon matter by means of its perispirit. So when we're going to see the mechanisms of healing, we have our spirits acting through our perispirit, our own spirit through our spiritual body or perispirit acting in the physical body. And then you have the mentors and the healers, the physicians, nurses, and therapists acting through the mediums to exert an action into someone who is incarnated, for example. So as you and I are here today, one day when we discarnate, we will be able to also act upon matter, because we will have our perispirit with us in the spiritual realm. And it says, spirits do what used to do when incarnated, and when necessary uses the physical body of an incarnate. Does that make sense? So whatever we like to do today may be what we do when we discarnate. So we are mindful today of what we do today, so we can better use our time on the other side. And then there are incarnates, as we're going to see next, that the spirits can use. Those are called mediums. We're all mediums to a certain extent, but we're pretty much talking about ostensive mediumship. And then the spirit is subjected to the law that govern the spiritual principles. So we have a set of natural laws that govern the material principle, and then we have a set of laws that dictate the spiritual principle. So that's us in an essence, because you and I today are souls, and this is a temporary internship, but the spirit the spiritual realm is the real life. So we will be there in the other side, and it's good to know that when we go back to our home, we will also be subject to different laws that govern the spiritual world. And spirit phenomena, he explains to us, Kardec explains to us, can be spontaneous or intentional. So there may be phenomena around us that is happening that is spontaneous. There's a medium in that area that doesn't know consciously that he or she is a medium and a phenomenon is occurring. Or it can be intentional. So for example, you and I are here today for healing. And they're healing mediums. You can go to places and they intentionally connect with their mentors to heal someone. So there's an intention there, consciously. Or for example, when you have your mediumistic meeting, you're intentionally having spirit phenomena because you're meeting to help the discarnates in the other, or to receive a message, or to do this obsession meeting. So that's an intentional act. And he says, can be precipitating as agents and known as mediums. However, he says, mediums do not produce anything supernatural. Therefore, they do not perform miracles. So, the miracles that, as we know, as extraordinary, is not something that Spiritism says the mediums do. So, mediums do act within the laws that are within the purview of physical and spiritual laws in a specific manner. So the spirits are helping the mediums do that, but they're not performing miracles. Even if you and I today walk somewhere with a physical illness or ailment, and then the medium works on you, and you walk out completely healed, it's still not a miracle. That's what he's saying, because mediums do not produce anything supernatural. Because to be supernatural, you have to derogate from the natural laws. And if the spirits are subjected to spiritual laws, you're not derogating from any laws. Does that make sense? So Kardec's very logical in that way, his explanations. It's a beautiful book to read, to study. Read and study. Now, God has created everything and anything that you know of. So does God perform miracles? Could God perform miracles? God could, right? Of course God could. But does God perform miracles? I'm hesitating to use he or she here. Does God perform miracles? God, this is what Kardec says, and I will give you a small interpretation of it. This is his words. God does not perform miracles because since the divine laws are perfect, God has no need to derogate from them. Because sometimes people think God does miracles to show off, to show how important it is. Actually, I'm paraphrasing, but it's pretty much what he says in his book. He says, God does not need to show to us that God is powerful. Because if God is powerful and just and all good, the supreme intelligence of the universe, and created perfect laws in order to perform a miracle that would derogate or break those laws, God would have to break his own laws, or her own laws. Divine wisdom does not match the action of God upon us. But of course God could, because God is supremely powerful, right? So it could. Now, back to Spiritism. So with Spiritism we learn what? What do we learn? What does Spiritism teach us? Amongst other things, of course, within the realms of miracles. There are immutable laws of God, and those laws are either regulating the material principle or the spiritual principle. And he says, if you would like to experience a miracle as something wonderful, look at God's actions in and all around us. So in a sense, you and I are miracles of the creation. As we spend all this time in internships, and today we are in the human kingdom, just the fact that you and I can breathe, exchange the oxygen and the carbon dioxide that is diffused in our blood and goes to each and every cell of your body, that is a specific, separate, microscopic entity in the spiritual realm and in the physical realm, that you can control through the act of your will, you are experiencing a miracle. Just the fact that you can be here today is a miracle. Many differences have to converge for you to be here today. Our children had just left, their miracles. They're like flowers we have to tend to so they can blossom into the potential that God has for them. So he talks about like just the act of breathing. Just look at nature. That's his words on the book. Look at nature around you, the flowers and the trees. Even the formation of a beautiful planet like ours is a miracle. Not because it's miraculous, but it's because an extraordinary, wonderful event. Just imagine the magnitude. If our planet, our blue planet, is so beautiful in and of itself within our solar system, we can only dream about the beautiful places there are in the cosmos, in the multiverse that we probably have out there. So he says, do you want to experience a miracle? Just look around and appreciate everything that is around you. Those are miraculous events. Just being here, the presence of our guardian angels with us each and every day, already going through the treatment that we need throughout this 2 hours that we're going to be together. That's a miracle. And I'll leave you with our spiritual governor of the planet. And if we have any comments or short comments or questions,
Did he make any miracles?
we'll see. We'll do the hook, right? After the break. After the break. We'll see.
Thank you, Sheyne.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Since Jesus is not speaking, Carol then is going to continue by talking another part of the book, Genesis, that complements it all, the source of it all, right, Carol?
Right. Thank you, Vanessa.
You're welcome.
So, friends, I'm going to refer to chapter 14 of the book Genesis, where Kardec, through the illuminated minds that worked with him directly, tells us that thoughts create life. So this isn't coming from me or Vanessa or the Spiritus Society of Virginia. This is coming from the book Genesis. So did you know that thoughts create life? You may be wondering, wow, that sounds like a miracle in and of itself, right? But amazingly, like Sheyne told us, this is not a miracle. This happens to be a law of the universe. So how does this law work? How it happens is that we are immersed in cosmic fluid. Cosmic fluid is like the air. We all know that air is available to us, right? If we spend 3 minutes without breathing, our physical body perishes. The same goes for our spirit and all matter in the universe. We are immersed in divine breath. These are words from the illuminated minds that inspired Kardec as well. And the divine breath takes the shape of cosmic fluid. And what do we learn in chapter 14 of the book Genesis? That our thoughts take shape through this cosmic fluid. So right now, if you're thinking about what you're going to eat for lunch a little later, guess what? We have beautiful pictures, cinematography productions of the delicious food that you may be thinking of, because your thought literally gets projected out there through cosmic fluid. So you are, I am, we are creating life as we think, because we are projecting our realities, and we learn through Kardec that we live immersed in our realities that we create. So let me give you more examples of how this process takes place. So this cosmic fluid that we just mentioned is a vehicle for thought. So right now, if you're thinking of your delicious lunch for later, this is what we see. The deliciousness is coming out of you right now and taking shape. And the discarnate spirits who are here, and those of us who are ostensible mediums, may be able to see what is taking shape exactly at this moment. And our dear Andre Lewis, who is a reporter from the beyond and who is a great educator and researcher, in his series of books through Chico Xavier brings us many examples of how thought comes to life. In this particular book, Missionaries of Light, there's the case of Marcondes that comes to our attention. What happens to him? He actually lives in Rio de Janeiro. For those of you who have been or seen Rio, you may be now thinking of the beautiful ocean, beautiful natural scenery. And he one day was taking a stroll, according to Andre Lewis, and he sees beautiful women walking by. And he actually flirts with these beautiful women walking by. And you may say, well, but isn't it natural to just do that? Come on, Carol, it's just a little flirting. Well, in fact, it's not just a little anything, because he gets immersed in those thoughts, brings the thoughts home with him, and when he goes to sleep, his spirit is liberated from his physical body, partially emancipated as are ours every night, and he actually attracts the spirit of those women. They come after him, and they say, hello, my friend. Did you call us? We are here, hello. And it was a very interesting hello, as reported by Andre Lewis, but he was actually, Marcondes was actually enrolled in a school of the afterlife, as we can enroll ourselves as well, to study and learn and progress. Did you know that we can study, learn, serve, and progress as we sleep? As our physical bodies sleep. Because the spirit never sleeps. And so Marcondes used to attend a center just like us, and he was enrolled in a class, just like many of us may be. And the spiritual teachers came to take attendance. Hi, Marcondes, it's time for class. Don't miss the school bus. We are waiting for you. And guess what? He was so busy, quote unquote, with the three women that he attracted to himself through the power of his thoughts, that he couldn't go to school that night. And his mentor asked him, what would you like us to tell the professor in the spiritual realm waiting for you? Oh, life is so tough, he said. I could not control myself. You know how life as an incarnate is. And the attendant said, well, let's not waste our times with those complaints. Hopefully you will find out who your true friends are. And in reality, in this realm, nobody knew that he had flirted. He hadn't commented the fact with anyone. It was just a thing for him to do. It was a passing thing for him to do. But even those acts which we may find passing, in reality may bring great consequences for us. And Andre Lewis asked the assistant professor in the spiritual realm, can we wake him up? Can we wake Marcondes up? Can we help him? Come on, he's a student at our school. Can't we help him? And the answer was, what do you guys think? Can we help him? The answer was no. We cannot help him because he has the right to exercise his free will. And it was his thoughts which provoked the situation. So we should go on a thought diet, right? We should go on a thought diet. We should learn from Andre Lewis and especially Kardec and our Master Jesus to cultivate beautiful thoughts. Our minds are like a garden, and we are responsible for the seeds that blossom in that garden. So we should attend to our thoughts just like a gardener attends to her flowers. And then we will literally reap what we sow. So Marcondes was reaping what he sowed. Another example of how powerful our thoughts are during our daily lives come from another report from André Luiz himself, from this time taken from the book Action and Reaction. In this book, André Luiz explains to us that through our thought patterns, we create habitual, quote-unquote, desires. These are desires that are like a broken record inside of us, that no matter what we do, those desires keep coming up again and again and again. Often they are results of old thought patterns that we may have created for ourselves even in previous lives, because of the actions that we decided to take as a result of the thoughts that we cultivated as gardeners of our souls. So in this particular case, we see the case of Luiz. Luiz was being accompanied by many spiritual companions that loved money, as you can see. Luiz thought about money day in and day out. His father had gotten into trouble previously because of his habitual desire for financial security. And you know what happened to Luiz? When he went to physical sleep and his spirit was partially emancipated from the physical body, yet again, his habitual desire for wealth controlled him ever so deeply that his spirit, partially emancipated, went to his office, as you can see in the picture, to do what? To count money. And the spirits accompanying him also had this obsession, quote-unquote, for money. And they explained to André Luiz that they go to schools in the spiritual realm, the school of avengers. Believe it or not, there is such a thing. We have schools to teach us to serve, to love, and to give of ourselves. And we also have schools that work on the central desire of avengers. And these spirits actually went to the Avenger school, and they learned that if they discover what someone's central desire is, they can keep pressing that button again and again and again. And we may be wondering how. How do you guys think that may happen? Through thought communication. So if I have a strong desire for wealth, I will attract spirits who also have the same strong desire, and we will feed off each other. So the spirit Silas, who told André Luiz about the school of avengers, told André Luiz, "Do you want me to show you how this works?" And André Luiz said, "Sure." So what Silas did was he placed his hand over Luiz's forehead, and he said, "You need to buy another farm. You need to buy another farm. You need more money. You need more power." And Luiz started repeating that to himself, thinking that the thoughts were coming from him, when in reality the thoughts were being magnified by Silas. And Silas said, "We can do this because the desire, the habitual desire, lives in him, in Luiz already. So because Luiz has this habitual desire, we can magnify it." And so Luiz was a prisoner of his own habitual desire. He couldn't stop thinking about wealth, so he attracted more companions on the other side of life that also desired wealth, and those companions could play with his mind and exacerbate that desire. So this is another reason for us to be good gardeners of our thoughts, because our thoughts are the bridges that connect us to the spiritual companies that are habitually around us. So if we want to attract loving company, we are today being invited to cultivate loving and kind thoughts. We know the kind of spiritual company that we may have around us exactly by thinking about the nature of our own thoughts. So a good exercise for us to do is an exercise that Vanessa has already invited us to do here at the SSVA, to think about what are our 3 most common thought patterns on a daily basis, the ones that repeat themselves. Write them down and think about what kind of spiritual company we may be attracting. If these are thoughts that may not attract the company that we desire, then it is within our power to change that pattern. And it's much easier to change it while incarnated, because we have so much stimulus around us, like a Spiritist center to attend, like books to read, like internet lectures to watch, like Kardec Radio at 11 p.m. Like all the live programs that we have on Kardec Radio. We have so many opportunities to nourish our souls that luckily it is within our power to change the nature of our thoughts. So we could do the homework and try to identify the 3 most common patterns, and if they attract the kind of companies we would like to have, great, keep on cultivating those thoughts. If not, great, we found out, so now we can change those patterns before we get to the point that Lewis found himself in. And I would like to close with one last case that I would like to bring to our attention. This case is from the book 2,000 Years Ago. If you are familiar with this book, you know that this is a real account of Publio Lentulus' incarnation 2,000 years ago, hence the name of the book. Publio Lentulus was one of the incarnations of the Spirit Emmanuel, who was the guardian angel of our dear Chico Xavier. In this book, we see on the first chapter, Emmanuel / Publio Lentulus, a Roman senator, talking to his best friend, Flaminius Severus. And Emmanuel Publio Lentulus reports to him that he had this very remarkable, bless you, that he had this very remarkable dream whereby he saw himself in old Rome signing papers as a senator as well, and making decisions about whether people were going to live or die, whether slaves were going to be condemned. And he saw himself as being very harsh with his decision making. He saw himself abusing power, and then he saw himself dying physically under very harsh conditions. Afterwards, in that same dream, he sees himself in the spiritual realm, being prepared for a new reincarnation. Then he sees himself with his wife as his guardian angel, carrying him back to earth, and he now sees in spirit the Rome of that time, and he sees his own father as a young man preparing to receive him as a son. So as he finishes reporting the dream to his best friend, he says, I believe I am the reincarnation of my own great-grandfather. We even have similar handwriting. And even our facial features are very similar. And the friend is shocked, and he says, Publilentulus says, I know I came back to life to avoid abusing power. So power was his central desire. And through his report, we learn that this central desire is with Publilentulus for more than one lifetime. We know that he made mistakes in a previous life. And if we read the book 2,000 years ago, we know that the central desire for power remained, and that unfortunately he made severe errors in judgment 2,000 years ago. He repeated the same patterns of cruelty, unfortunately, due to his central desire for power. So he himself recognizes the repetition through this digression to a previous life. So how many of us may be repeating the same central desire from one life to the next? So this is another homework for us. Do we have a desire that is central in our lives? Situations that keep repeating themselves again and again and again, and we may have similar reactions every time, and we may be asking, why is this happening to me yet again? It may be because of this central desire. But a new reincarnation is a new opportunity. So if we immerse ourselves into the nature of our thoughts, we are able to identify the central desire and change it for the better, as Emmanuel did in the book 50 years ago. He reincarnated yet again, this time as a Christian slave, and he was able to break, to recycle, to transform that central desire by fully dedicating himself to the Christ, Jesus of the earth. And you may be wondering, but Carolina, this sounds like a lot of work. Are you asking us for a miracle? Actually, no. I'm asking you to follow the universal laws. And you may be wondering, but how do I go about doing that? Luckily, our Master Jesus, of course, and our dear Emmanuel have an answer for us. What can we do to change our central desires? In the book Thought and Life, written by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier, chapter 10, entitled Understanding, Emmanuel tells us this quote-unquote miraculous secret to changing the nature of our thoughts. He asked us to seek the good in our lives, visualize the good, mold the good with all the forces inside of us. So this reminds us of a story told by Jesus, which Vanessa has already shared with us as well, so forgive me if you have already heard this story. But there was a time when Jesus was walking with his disciples, and they saw a dead dog on the road. And the disciples said, "Ew, what a horrible smell. This is awful. I don't like it." And Jesus was able, as the master of all masters, to say, "Oh, but the dog had beautiful teeth. I love the dog's teeth." So this is what we mean by seeking the good. We have to make an effort. How do we learn to seek the good? Through effort and repetition. The Spirit Joana de Angelis, through Divaldo Franco, tells us that we are able to do that by replacing thoughts that are less fortunate by thoughts that are more positive. So it takes effort, but we are here in the gym of the soul, and we have a fantastic personal trainer, our Master Jesus. So I leave you with our very own personal trainer, as Vanessa tells us more about the mechanisms of miracles according to Spiritism.
Is it? Is it the same? Yeah, it does say. Just the words. Can you hear it?
I don't hear anything yet.
Not yet, okay. It has a lag.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Okay. So in the book Genesis, the part that we're studying here, we're talking about miracles, the foundation of life as our thoughts. And when we say thoughts, as Emmanuel says in the book Thought and Life, it's about feelings and the actual thoughts. So it encompasses everything. And healing. Thank you. It's healing. The next part of it all. When we think about healing, we're talking about something that is not in harmony, that needs to go back to harmony, right? That's what we're saying. It went out of its natural configuration, this harmony, out of synchronicity with the harmonious flow of life, and then we want to go back to it. So there is what we call the prevention and the remediation. There are two levels here for us when we talk about healing. The first one is about how to avoid getting out of sync. That's the easiest way. The other one's a little bit more complicated. And why do we say this? Because by principle, Sheyne showed to us, we're spirits, immortal, you and I. All of us here, we essentially, we're divine. So you don't need to make an effort to be in harmony with God. I don't need to make an effort. Because I am essentially divine. I am essentially good. But I need to expand it. So Kardec uses an analogy for us to change a multi-millenary myth, the myth that we are sinners. Many people think, I'm bad. I need to change myself. I'm not a good person. Okay. Think of a seed. The seed of a pine tree. And visualize right now as if I have the seed of the pine tree. I've never seen it, so forgive me. I have no idea the size of it. But if you know, we'll Google it later. But I bet as any seed, it's small. So it's here. The pine tree. Because we're talking about Christmas trees, right? Oh. And then the tree. Beautiful. Look at the seed. Is it beautiful? I mean, like a seed, right? It's as beautiful as a seed can be. Right? But you look at the seed. Are you mad at the seed because the seed is not the tree? But that's what we do. How come you're not a pine tree yet? You're bad. You're not growing. That's what we do every day. We look at ourselves in the mirror and we shout at ourselves, how come you're not like Jesus Christ yet? Oh, because there are stages of development, huh? We're evolving. And then you look, since Carol brought up the analogy of being a gardener. So now the next stage, you put it in the soil. First thing that happens, it grows roots, then it can grow up. We need to root ourselves. It's dark, it's humid, it's lonely. But then, as long as I root myself in, I am able to sprout myself outwards and up. And you see, you're excited. But do we scream at that little plant for not being a pine tree right away? No, literally, that's what we do. We look at ourselves, we are doing something good. The next day, we're not able to continue that beautiful sprouting. And then we feel guilty. We punish ourselves. How come? You were doing great. But then if you look in nature, there are beautiful branches, and there's always a branch that is not, right? There's always a part of the plant that is not as that. Look at this beautiful friend that is here with us. Beautiful friend, huh? Beautiful. But the leaves are not the same. Are we gonna be mad because this one is dry at the tips? How come you're dry? What's going on? And the bird saying, you need to take care of me. Remember, I'm not alone. And we're not alone either. Like this plant, we have good spirits that are watering us, taking care of us. And there are others who do the opposite. They don't want us to grow and progress as well. So when we talk about being in sync, it's about learning that we are divine. Trusting that like the seed, you need to coach yourself. We need to coach ourselves to the next stages of development in peace, at peace, without self-punishment. Because that's when we also get out of sync. When we try to be more than God. Because God doesn't punish us. God has already created a universe in which there is educational ways in which we are going to be readjusted, corrected with love. Staying in sync. Then André Luiz explains to us in the book Evolution into Worlds, when we get out of sync, when we predispose ourselves to illnesses of the mind and the bodies, and we're talking about spiritual body, physical body, he says, chapter 19 of part 2 of the book Evolution into Worlds, which we're studying at 11 p.m. at Kardec Radio every day, and this chapter is coming up in the next week. So, for us, he says, everything begins when we make a grave mistake. Why? Because of this. Because our laws, the laws of God, are written in our conscience. Everything we do, say, feel, and think doesn't go away. Stays recorded here. Even though people don't know, it stays here. It's Christmas, people are talking about the elf watching us to tell Santa stories, right? But the elf is in our conscience. It's saying, alarm, bzz, buzzing. It's buzzing, saying something is off. And what happens? André Luiz says, when we make a grave mistake, it doesn't pass through that inner filtering. And then we create nodules, he says, his own words, of vibratory disturbance that stays in our spiritual body. And it will only be flushed out when we change our vibration, and usually through reincarnation. And that's how we predispose ourselves to illnesses. So the body is expunging those disturbances that we have created. Bits of vibration that do not match our essence. And illnesses become the pruning of the tree. It's when the tree needs pruning to grow stronger. But how does the healing happen? So now we know how to prevent it, huh? Learn the laws. So now, every Saturday at 6 p.m., Kardec Radio, Carol and Sheyne are leading a God at Home meeting live where they will be studying the laws of God according to what we know in the Spirit's book, third part, the Divine Laws. So you can join them every Saturday at 6 p.m. studying there. Because the more we know, the less we make a mistake. The other day somebody said, but Vanessa, I had a few abortions, but it was before I knew that now we need to do a healing process, because an infraction, a crime is a crime. Sorry to say, I don't want to judge, but if we need just to categorize, it is what it is. But knowing, not knowing, not having the intention, and not knowing exactly what you're doing minimizes it, you know? But yet, we need to repair. We need to adjust. How many things we do nowadays that we think are okay, and we'll find out in 100 years, 500 years, that they are not okay. Remember when we were cavemen? No. But we can almost guess. When people approached us, they wanted to get the meat that we had a hard time hunting for, and we killed somebody because of a piece of meat. Beautiful. I mean, beautiful, because you're saving your family. Nowadays, we think about it and we are like, oh my gosh, I killed somebody because of a piece of meat. Two different contexts. Was that wrong? Yes. Did we know? No. Like a lion eating a rabbit. The lion is not going to go through the remorse and guilt. There's no consciousness. Out of need. Now we gain responsibility, as André Luiz says in the book Evolution in Two Worlds, when we start communicating word and responsibility. We gain new awareness and we change our ways. So if we get ourselves out of sync, how do we put ourselves back to synchronicity? Everything begins in the mind. Carol said it already, right? I'll show you just one slide to recap before we move to what Kardec says as the mechanisms of healing. To prevent it, avoid the grave mistake. Self-control, impulse control, so we don't go there. Impulse control is everything. If we learn to think before we take an action, we're going to minimize these occurrences until the day we no longer are exposed to those possibilities because we got it. So, teaching our children impulse control is an act of love. Sit still and stay here. And if you do, I'll bring you the second marshmallow. That's a good thing. And if you guys stay here, you get lunch too. We all will. So Andrea Lewis reminds us, don't go there, so we don't get out of sync. But what if we did? Oh my gosh. Remembering aggravates, okay? Andrea Lewis says, remembering the mistake, oh my gosh, I did it, oh my gosh, I did it, oh my gosh, oh my God. It just predisposes us to vibrating at a level that will be attracting the equalizer. That will flush it out, disease. To understand the healing mechanism, we need to feel ourselves as fish in the ocean of the divine breath. This is Andrea Lewis' concept that is an expansion, as Sheyne says, from the book Genesis by Kardec. We live in the divine breath, the divine care, the divine plasma, the universal cosmic fluid. We're there, feel it. Oh my gosh, I thought I was lonely. No, we're not lonely. We are immersed in this loving care. And that's where it all begins. Because Kardec will say in chapter 15 of the book Genesis, items 31 to 34, that the universal cosmic fluid is the primitive element that generates our body, the physical and the spiritual body, which are just derivations of it all. Wow. You can almost second guess, right? Guess what happens, the implication of it. If our molecules came from it, when it's off, I don't need to go to Costco to shop for new healthy molecules. It's here, all around. The universal fluid, says Kardec, can supply reparatory elements to the body. So the universal, this divine plasma, contains all, it's like the original clay, the elements that I need to do the repair. It's like you have a hole and you have everything you need to patch. And it's not elsewhere, it's right here. It's right here. Anywhere. Even in the worst place you feel like. Some people are like, I don't like that place, but remember, there's no place where God is not. There is no place where the divine plasma is not. So there, seek the good. Mamma mia. Seek the good. And when we find the good, Chico Xavier found it. In a tiny little village. It's still tiny. A town, but it's tiny. Finding the good, seeking the good, making that effort wherever we are, everywhere is divine. Wow. And Kardec continues. Incarnate or discarnate spirit injects a portion of the universal fluid in the deteriorating body. So it's right here. We don't know how to do it yet. But that's how it happens. We're learning how to do it. We are co-creators, says Andrea Luiz in the book Evolutioning Towards, chapter 1. There are levels of being co-creator. We are at the level of co-creators of a lesser level. We're learning how to manage our spiritual and physical bodies. We don't know yet. We get a cold. Like, oh God. Louise Hay's book. Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. And I start doing the thoughts. And yet. Oh my gosh. What am I missing? Well, it takes time for us. It's like a child learning how to read and write. They get it. But from getting mentally to motor-wise actually writing it, there's a lag. Only maturity, practice will bring it. Aha. Now we got it. That's why Andrea Luiz says, effort and repetition will make us get there. There'll be one day we're like, Jesus never had a cold. We know he was never sick because he mastered this. Always being in sync. We are destined to that. So that's our goal. Instead of thinking of the bills you have to pay, of how the world is still, think about the day you already mastered all of it. And that's what Mentor Joseph says every day. Vanessa, do not spend time thinking about what is not. Think about what is and will be. Visualize the good, always. People being friendly, people being together. Out there not, but we will. There will be a day we will be all in the same room, together, being friends. How it's going to happen, I don't know, but we know it's going to happen. So we start visualizing that bridge. And he says, healing happens by replacing an unhealthy molecule with a healthy one. The divine plasma, healthy molecules. So I don't need to take a plane and see a healing medium elsewhere. Because the healing components are here, anywhere. The healing power is a direct result of the purity of the injected substance. That's when maybe going places make more sense. Because how do we get to this purity of the substance? It's funny to say, and I'm going to open a parenthesis here. There are spiritist centers and spiritist centers. There are spiritist centers in which people are cautious, vigilant, dedicated, and disciplined. The other day I saw a conversation on Facebook where people were saying, oh, but spiritist groups are rigid. I say, I don't think they're rigid. I think we know why we need to play by the rules. It's not rigidity, it's wisdom. Because how are we going to achieve this level of purity of that substance if we don't help out? We need to do our part. And that's why all of the books from Kardec's time to Emmanuel and Andrea Luiz, they say, without self-sacrificing, the good spirits cannot do the work. So we need to change our habits, our lifestyle, and prioritize if we want to be good instruments of the good spirits. And it doesn't come if I use white clothes. No, it's not external. It's inner. Item 341 of the Medium's book by Allan Kardec. the good spirits will be where, and there are conditions. Condition number 1, where there is purity of thoughts and feelings regarding one another. So in a mediumistic meeting, I cannot have somebody who has ill thoughts about others. If we do not admire each other and trust one another completely, the good spirits cannot operate through us easily. They will operate. As once Godinho told me, if a physician is walking in the forest with a group and needs to perform an emergency, they are going to use any knife that exists, whether sterile or not. But if you are performing the same surgery in a hospital where everything is sterile and you have the proper team and the proper instruments, the chances of success are triplicating. And that's what we're talking about. The healing power depends on the energy of the will, which causes more abundant fluidic emission and gives the fluid a greater penetrating power. So will is the word for here, the key word. My will directs the abundance of the flow. So when I am willing to be healed, my will is imperative. Jesus can come and it's like, okay, whatever. I don't know if I deserve it. Well, you're already blocked. Saying, God, I love you. I love myself because I'm your creation and I am in your hands. I open myself to you. Please sculpt me. No conflict. Psychological conflicts are blocking the energy flow. So will, de-obstruct it with will for the healing medium or the past giver. Being of goodwill regarding the work and the person is also imperative. And that's the case one day in Baltimore, many years ago. We were in the spiritual treatment meeting, and there was a man who was very stubborn. He was a good person, but very stubborn. And he wanted to be healed. And we kept explaining to him a few things. And when we were about to give the passes, I said to Maitre Joseph, it's hard. He's stubborn. And then Maitre Joseph said, think of your father. I know he's stubborn too. No, not so much. No, but we're just joking here. And he says, think of your father. Don't you love your father? I do. Isn't he stubborn sometimes? Yeah, many times. So, what if this man were your father, seated here and receiving the treatment? Oh my gosh. When he said that, my heart opened so much. I said, oh my gosh, I will give my life. At that minute, I looked at that man like as if he were my father. And I started feeling that love that I couldn't stop. And when I finished, he stood up and said, can I give you a hug? I said, of course. See how they feel? One day we will love everybody. It's a sure thing. Till then, we practice visualizing our loved ones in everyone. Until one day, that one will be our loved one as well. Because we're destined to love one another as we already love our loved ones. That willingness de-obstructs, allows the flow. Makes sense. That curative power or healing power depends on the intention of the person who wants to do the healing, whether incarnate or discarnate. So our intention. Keeping that in mind, if we summarize the previous slides, just to keep in mind, the healing power depends on the purity of the substance that is injected, on the energy of our will, and our intentions. And Kardec complements by saying that it may vary according to intensity and the speed of action, to the point that we may have a healing that happens slowly and needs a prolonged treatment, or it may happen quickly, like an electric current, because everything is already in place, right? There's no miracle. Like, oh my gosh, you buy a tree that already has lights in, and you plug in light, and like, oh my gosh, it's a miracle, but it was already in place. Unlike if you have to buy and mount the whole thing. So that's the only difference. One thing has been already worked out. The other, we need to work on the elements to really produce it all. But healing is the same. It depends on us synchronizing ourselves with that divine breath, thought that envelops us all. To finalize this part of the understanding of it all, we needed to add one more element that Kardec explains. So we rid ourselves of the myth that this action of healing may happen in three different fashions. He says, we may need the very vitality of the magnetizers, he says, we say as giver, or the healing medium, but in this case not a medium, the person giving out the very fluid, okay? We have the spirits directly operating upon the person without a medium, and we have the combination. In reality, how will we know when it comes only from the person or from only the spirits, if we are always surrounded by people? So when somebody comes to us and says, I can charge because I know it comes from me, how do you know there is no other spirit? Like when Chico Xavier, as a teenager, psychographed the first book, Parnaso de Além Túmulo, hundreds of poetry. He could have claimed, I'm the writer, be famous, like many people do. I know many people who publish books and say, I know it wasn't me, but if I say, so I say it's me. Chico Xavier said, courageously, it isn't me. And it's a phenomenon to date, to be studied. How he channeled dozens of poets, different styles, not having read any of them. A phenomenon. We're always surrounded by spirits. They are always operating upon us. So when you receive passes, you bet this is the combination. And even though you may not be a pass giver, you may be able to help giving of your own energies. fluids. That's why when we give the passes, the good spirits ask us to give some commands so we can help. Because they may come and say, you know, let me take the good spirits. That person is emitting a lot of good fluids. Let me take some of it. And you may be seated, not giving the passes, but you're helping. That's why we know that all these works need what we call a current. And to practice to be at this current of support is not simple, because it requires a lot of mental training, emotional training. But we can practice. When we are applying these passes, you can be of help by visualizing good things, by staying in prayer and saying, I am available to give and being a vessel of good fluids. They can use us to help others. And that's charity. And you don't need to be labeled a past giver. So that's a practice for us. If we visualize the picture, let's keep it in mind for us, okay? The spirits operating through us and or directly, but in a teamwork fashion. To finalize it, the good news for us who are always preparing ourselves for the next steps. The faculty of healing, says Kardec, may be developed with practice. You don't know what to do with life? That's a job to prepare for. We're just saying, we're all co-creators, friends. And to be an instrument of healing is just part of nature. Our plants are healing mediums. Our animals, especially the pets, they become healing mediums too. How many of our pets get sick because they filter out our own disturbances faithfully without noticing, because they're connected to our spiritual fluidic environment. So we are part of nature. We're also healing instruments, but if we do it consciously, we are raising ourselves to another level till the day we're co-creators at a major level, like Jesus. Good news? Right? So this is it for now. To immerse ourselves into what it is to be a co-creator at a major level, to be this healing instrument, we now are going to revisit 3 of his healings and how Spiritism explains these healings. Not in a miraculous way, but in a way that we can understand based on this knowledge, okay? Let's keep that in mind as we transition to our friends. Who's going to be first? Deise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Deise. Deise, we're all yours. Please.
Hi everybody, how are you doing? Do you need to stand a little bit? Yes, there we go. Let's stand and stretch. Is it warm? Is it really warm? Okay. Do you mind, Eric? Just yeah, maybe we. Sleepy. Yeah.
Daisy, o meu tá marcado sobre.
Ah, tá certo.
O dela não está marcado, o seu é o próximo.
Okay, friends. So now we're gonna move on to this last part before we have the spiritual treatment in the passes. So, myself, Luciana, and Palloma, we're gonna briefly go through and explain 3 of the healings performed by Jesus. So, if you look in the Genesis, and has Sheyne explained to us, separated in 3 parts. Part 2 is called miracles. And if you go to chapter 15, it's called Miracles in the Gospel. And right there, you're going to be able to read about several of the healings performed by Jesus himself. And reading this, the descriptions are actually very short, very small, just a few sentences or short paragraphs. But we're going to see as we go through this, they're very deep. It might seem small at first when you read it, but they actually have a lot of content. And the beauty of Spiritism is that it brings to us that Jesus not only taught us through words, it was his gesture, the way he looked at people, what he did. So we are going to take a step, kind of like a next step as we go through this, and we're going to see each of the actions performed by Jesus, not only the healing itself, but everything that he did, it really brings it all together. And we will see with this case. So we're talking here about the healing of the blind man at Bethsaida, I believe. It's a city. So Jesus used to travel, right, with the apostles. He used to go and visited different villages, different places, and it got to a point that people would follow him. They want to see Jesus. They want to go there. They will ask, can you help me? Can you help my family members? So in this case, Jesus was arriving in this city, and some people, they approached him and they brought this blind man and they said, can you please help him? Can you please, and begged him to help him. And very interesting and unique, in this situation, Jesus did. He took the blind man by the hand and he led him outside of the village. So different from a lot of the healings where right there, Jesus would approach them, would talk to them. And so like I said, let's not take this, we're gonna see what does this really mean. And I will share with you, at least I think the beauty of this, but we're gonna do it together. So he took the man by the hand and had led him outside of the village. And then right there, he performed the healing. So he, spit on his hand, used some saliva, he touched, the blind man. And then he asked him, what do you see? And at first, the blind man said, oh, I see people, but they look like trees walking around. So if you use glasses, imagine if you take your glasses off, you can still see, right, the shapes and the forms in the distance. You cannot really tell, who that person is. So let's think about that. That's kind of, at first, the blind man was like, I see figures look like big trees. I know that they are people, but I cannot really tell. It's not like, crystal clear. So then one more time, Jesus laid his hands on his eyes and his sight was restored. But the story doesn't stop there. So has a good doctor, has any doctor, when you're sick, you go to the doctor, he performs the treatment, the surgery, or, he consults you. But before you go home, he gives you a prescription, right? Things for you to take home, to continue the treatment, right? And, you should, these are what you should follow once you go, so you don't get sick again, right? So that's the same thing that Jesus did. He gave this man a prescription, which we're going to find out, which is very interesting. So he told him, go home, but don't go into the village. So let's remember, he took this man out of the village, right, to perform the healing. And then he told him, go home, but don't go into the village. So that's very interesting, right? Because if we at first read this and think about it like literally, like how can you go home? What does he mean? Go home, but don't go into the village, right? So, but with Jesus, we have to remember that he taught in parables, right? We have to take a step back and think, what is the home that he's referring to and what is this village? Let's take a step back, not think about it literally. So let's start thinking about the home. When he told the man, go back home, what did he mean? He meant, well, you're healed now, right? So go back to your daily responsibilities, to your life, right? It's not because now you're healed that you're gonna, go on and have a different life. You have to go home to your family. So in this case, this home that Jesus is referring to is really talking about our responsibility. So each one of us here in this room, we reincarnated with a reincarnatory plan. So the high spirits, the benevolent spirits, and if we have the merit, we also with them, work with them to develop a plan. This is how my reincarnation will be. So that are set of responsibilities and duties that we came here to fulfill. And this is unique for each one of us. Our duty is unique. And this can be in your family. It can be, in you yourself may have asked, can I reincarnate it on this specific family? Or can I receive this person who in the past, it might be my enemy, but can I receive this person as my son or my daughter? So Jesus is not excusing the blind man or any of us of our responsibility. He's saying, go back home. And this home is really our circumstances in life. So it's so easy, right, for us to think, and nowadays with social media, we're like, I want to travel. I want to go to this place. I want to do that. Or this person, has this life and is so much better. So easy for us, right, to imagine ourselves. But we forget that we are where we are for a reason. And we might not understand it right at this moment, but we are here for a purpose. So you're not in Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia, Richmond, just because. There is a specific reason, or Delaware, sorry, Carol. Sorry. You are there, and a lot of the healing that we're talking about, you see that is not about, thinking what it could be. It's really being in the moment, in the present. And face what this is, what is true is our duty in life. And this is something that only by analyzing ourselves, by thinking about it, knowing ourselves, we're going to be able to see. But then, that was the second part, right? So, okay, I understand. Go home, continue, you're healed now. Go continue in your life with your responsibilities. But he said, don't go into the village. So what is this village? Right? What does that mean? It's hard to grasp. But this morning, listen to Sheyne, to Carol, Vanessa. We heard this theme, right? That we can only be healed. Healing really starts in the mind, right? In the spirit. It doesn't start right here. So this village is not a physical village. It's actually a mental village. Because our mind is very powerful, as Carol talked to us this morning. And the village, you know, what caused first the illness, we had to go to the root. So let's think about this for a minute. What could this village means, right? And again, this is very individualized, right? But let's take, for example, we're talking about, Vanessa was saying, you know, you committed a grave mistake. You know, we're all humans, we're here learning. You know, you committed a grave mistake. And you go on in your life, you know, not forgiving yourself first. You continue in that thought pattern. But I did this. I'm not good enough. I did that. And our minds are always, we don't change our thought pattern. So without going to that root, we're really not going to be able to be healed. Or sometimes it's forgiving others. So, you know, let's say something very grave happened in your life. Someone hurt you, or, you know, you went through a situation. And then we take a picture of that moment. It's like a snapshot. Not the app. Not the app, right? I don't know a lot about Snapshot, but what I heard, you Snapshot, you do a little video, right?
Like Snapchat.
Snapchat, but then it disappears. It deletes, right? Wow. Yeah. That's not what happens in our mind. So unfortunately the app doesn't really match with what really happens, because the app deletes you record a short video and then it deletes itself, right? Unfortunately, that's not what happens to us, because we keep playing that video in our minds over and over. And months go by, years goes by, and then we're like, but that person, they are that, they did that, that's them. And we don't know, maybe years goes by, the person has changed, they have learned, but we continue remembering them as they were in the past. And Vanessa can tell us, science already has proved that once you think about a moment in your life, or revise it, your physical body, you experience the same sensations as if you were on that moment, right, Vanessa? So let's say maybe something that happened in your childhood, something that your parents told you, and it just stayed with me. Maybe, they didn't mean it, they say, how are you doing this? Oh my gosh, I can't believe you don't know how to do anything. And then you stay with that thought pattern over and over in your mind. Oh, but my parents told me I wasn't good enough. And you don't know, maybe, your mom, your dad, they were going through a rough day, they weren't thinking, but we stay there. And our physical body continues to experience that moment as it was today. So this mental village, this is what really we have to go and change when we say focus on the good, visualize the good. I know we continue repeating that, and that's for me too, we are going through, we are practicing this, because in the case of the blind man, it was the village that makes him blind, right? So as a doctor, when he prescribes the medicine, thank you, Carol, he says, don't do this, don't do that. And Jesus said, go home, but don't go to the village. Don't go to that mental village. So, okay, how can we do this, right? So, this is really good, but let's think, how can we really perform this? And throughout this story, Jesus actually told us, and that's how beautiful this is, because at every action or word that he said, he was already giving us the tips. And I summarize here in 4 things how we can really change that pattern. So the first thing that he did, he took the man by the hand. And this may seem like trivial, like that's okay, but it actually has a very deep meaning. because it means that you're not alone. He's here. Jesus is here to guide and help us. And as Vanessa just said, we're never alone. Whenever we might be, it may be the worst place on planet Earth. All we have to do is to connect. So today I want to remind you that you have, each one of us have 24/7 someone by our side that's there. Can you imagine having a job 24/7, no breaks, that you do with so much love, right? I think it's beyond, like, I don't think, we go to our 8 hours job and at the end of the day we're already exhausted, and then you tell people and then they don't listen to you, right? That's our guardian angels, can you believe? But they are there 24/7, so they don't have a break. And they don't want to because they love what they do. And that's just one example. We have many, many other kind and elevated spirits who are with us. So if you ever feel alone, just connect. That's all you have to do, like the computer with the internet. Go on, log in. It's a prayer. It's just asking, wake up. Like, this is a good exercise. Wake up in the morning and then, even before you get out of bed, say, thank you, God, for this day. And my guardian angel, please guide me so that this day I can fulfill my tasks and what God has planned to us. That's all. And you see, with those words, your day will already change and be much better. It will, truly is. So then the second tip that Jesus brought to us. So they left the village, right? So it's a concrete action. We have to go through, as we're saying, and change our thought patterns, change our attitudes, our actions. So it's beautiful to read, right? We should read all the books. Because that's how we're gonna gain the knowledge. So that's the first step. But then Jesus is saying the second step is to apply, is to go and put that in practice every day, which is hard, right? It's not easy. But that brings us to the third point, which everything is a process. So like in nature, you see things in nature, right? Where now it's almost winter, right? So you see the leaves, they start changing. So they change a little bit today, right? And then they change a little bit more tomorrow. And then a few days, the whole tree has changed. And then you drive by maybe, in a week, and the leaves are not there. They have fallen, right? Isn't that beautiful? But it's a process, right? And that's how our healing happens. You're gonna go through, you have to apply, right? But there will be times that you're gonna fail. And it's okay. It's okay to, you go home and you're like, I shouldn't have said that at work. Why did I say that? I know better, right? Be like, Deise, you know better. You shouldn't have said that. But it's okay. You can, and that's when you ask, okay, guardian angel, give me another chance. And I will try again tomorrow. And you will see that similar situations, they will, if you are open to it, and if you're really paying attention, you see a similar situation may happen in a few days, and you're like, now I know. Now I can do better. Now I can say, I can either not say that what I said, or I can rephrase it. So it's okay. It's a process. But the true healing would really happen. Remember at the end, this man could see far away, right? At the end, he had crystal clear vision. So for us to truly have the healing that we've been talking about throughout today, is to have that understanding and that discernment. And like Vanessa was saying, understanding that every one of us are here learning. Everyone is a child of God. Even your worst enemy, but the day that you think about them and you understand they are also a child of God, they are also here learning as we do, they also commit mistakes. That's the day that the true healing will take place. It's a long ways to go, but as Vanessa said, we'll get there. We'll get to the moment that we'll all be together fraternally and not having to worry about, that person and what they did. And we're gonna be as a really beautiful family under God. So today, I think Jesus is really inviting us, and I will leave you with this beautiful picture. He really is standing his hand out to each one of us, and he's saying, leave that village, leave that mental pattern that you have in your life. Go home, fulfill your obligations, because no one will excuse you. And if you don't do in this life, you're gonna have to come back and repeat it. And unfortunately, from the literature, we've seen that it will be harder if you don't fulfill in this life. And this is all what all the books show to us, that if you come back, it will be harder next time. So why don't we do it right now? And it's all here in our hands. And Jesus is inviting us today to join him in this beautiful journey. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to continue on the study of the stories that we see on the Genesis books. And when we're talking about healing, we have to remember that it's all about fluid exchange. And this story is very much about this exchange that's happening and the quality of the fluids. So the title of this is The Loss of Blood. And it goes like this. There is a woman, and she's been bleeding for 12 years. And 12 years of, they say bleeding, but it's hemorrhage, right? Just going to the doctors. And nobody's helping her. She's spending an enormous amount of money for that time. Nothing's happening. She's just bleeding away her life. And she feels it. She's getting weaker and weaker and weaker. Then she heard about Jesus. And when Jesus is coming, there's always a crowd. And you can imagine a woman that has been bleeding for 12 years. She's weak. At this point, people know what's happening with her, and they are like, stay away, whatever you have, you start getting segregated from society. At that point, she really felt that was her last chance. She fought through the crowds and got to Jesus. And, weaving in and out, she was able to touch his garment. It's not like she got to Jesus and hugged him. She touched a piece of his garment. And then she thought at that moment, her immediate reaction was, if I touch him, I will be healed. And she was. Touch him, and she felt it. Jesus also felt something happen. He felt energy flowing out of him. And he immediately was asking, who touched me? Who touched me? And the disciples were kind of laughing, this is funny, Jesus, because there's a crowd around you. Everybody's trying to touch you. There's so many people, and you're asking, who touched you? And of course, the woman was embarrassed. She didn't know, but she came forward, and she threw herself at his feet and said that she's the one that touched him. And Jesus told her, my daughter, your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be healed of your illness. Okay. So, an interesting question here for us is, why was she the only one healed? maybe she wasn't, but in this case, they're only talking about her. Why was she the one healed? You know, why is she the one that touched him and felt it? Why did Jesus feel the flow of energy out of him? And Kardec explains in the book Genesis that this is not a miracle. You know, we think of it when we listen to these healings from Jesus, that it's, wow, it's a miracle. It is not a miracle. It's fluidic exchange. When he talks about Jesus feeling that he felt the energy flowing out of him, it's true. It's vital fluid that was sucked. And we'll go back to what, you know, pushing energy or receiving energy in a little bit, but it's like a vacuum. She sucked the energy from Jesus, and that energy was directed to where her body needed healing. She attracted the energy from Jesus to her. So when we are here and we're receiving passes, there are two ways that it can happen. We saw that there, you know, it could be from people here, the incarnates, from the spirits, and a mix. But there's a dynamic where we can push. So imagine that we're doing the passes, you know, we're mentalizing the energy flowing from us, from the spirit mentors, to everybody that is sitting there. We are pushing that energy. And we're, you know, mentalizing beautiful thoughts and, you know, radiant golden light, and we're mentalizing, we're pushing that energy. But there's also the phenomenon of the person that is receiving, and that person is calling for it, right? Energy, I need you, heal my body, I'm open to it, I need it, you know, or God knows what I need, let it be, receiving it. You're calling that energy to you. So there are both ways, and this woman knew what she needed, and she touched Jesus and called it from him, the energy that she needed. So now we know on our day-to-day, so we're thinking this is miracle, right? I'm sure we've all experienced. You go somewhere and you meet somebody and you feel refreshed. You're like, wow, that person has some uplifting energy. I feel great. You know? And who knows? She might have done right there a miracle. She might have just donated energy to you that you didn't know you needed. And, you know, that vital connection, fluidic exchange happened, and you feel much better. You're like, wow, feel great. The reverse also happens, right? Where you meet somebody, or somebody comes to your house, or at work, you walk out, you're drained. You're like, wow, today I feel tired. But not tired because you were working out, or because you were doing intense, you know, manual labor, but you're just feeling like, wow, drained. Maybe you donated energy. You donated some of your vital fluid to somebody that needed to. And that exchange is happening every day. And healing is happening all around us all the time. You know, and all these experiences that we hear of people that were, you know, on their deathbed by doctors. That's it. We saw about Louise Hay. Louise Hay, the doctor said, I'm sorry, we cannot help you. And something happened within her that she was able to change probably many things. And she found healing from within. And then she was teaching us how we can find healing, right? And healing might not be that you're gonna see physically what's happening, but it's the deeper healing that's happening is within us. That is the most important. So even if you're saying, I have a cold, oh my God, I have a cold, it doesn't go away, oh my God, I've been coughing for 3 weeks. The healing that's going inside, you might have stopped coughing, but it's because maybe you need to get things out of you. We don't know. Only God knows what's happening. You know, we trust that God's going to bring to us what we need. And we ask to be good, open heart to receive it. So that we can have this good fluidic exchange that's always happening around us. So that we can attract from, you know, the divine plasma everything we need. And just to finish up, why did this woman receive the healing? And I wanted to bring some points for us to reflect on. One, active faith. She trusted, said that she felt that if she got close to Jesus, she would receive healing. But can I stay home and pray to Jesus, Jesus, heal me, and you stay there doing the same thing over and over again? It doesn't happen. That's why the word active, right? You need to do something about it. If Jesus gave you tools and God gave us tools, our body, and we're here, we need to do something about it actively. Just praying that it happens, but you don't change or you don't do anything different, it's not gonna do it, huh? Eventually we'll get there because we'll learn the lesson. Just how fast we want to learn the lesson, up to us. Courage. Because now she was willing to go. She felt that was the right thing to do. But what if she felt fear? I don't know. People are going to look at me. They're going to judge me. You know, they don't know, like, everybody knows my story. Imagine back then, everybody talks, you know, families are very tight. So it's hard. But she's like, you know, doesn't matter. I have to do what I have to do. Courage. And she went in the middle of the crowd and weaved her way in and out, even though she was weak and still bleeding. What goes to the next point? Determination. She felt powerful. She's like, I'm going to do it. It doesn't matter how, but I'm going to do it. And determination took her to the next level. I'm going to fight through the crowds. And I'm going to get close to Jesus. And, you know, nothing would have stopped her. That's the point. She was ready to perform. She went. And trusting God. Of all of this, she trusted that if she got close to Jesus, that she would be healed. And that was it. She trusted so much that she received the energy that she was mentalizing, huh? She didn't tell Jesus, Jesus, give me your energy. You know, nobody there. She is in her thought, in her mind, she's creating this vision. She created a path for her to heal. And she went and did what she mentalized, and it became concrete in the physical body. But she, from her home, fighting through the crowds, to touching Jesus, all that, before all those things happened, she had it in her mind. So for us is to understand that healing is happening all the time through fluidic exchange. So we make a choice, as Carol pointed out to us, through our thoughts. Huh? So if we want to have this fluidic exchange that is naturally happening, our only choice is to choose what type of fluids are we immersed in. You know, what do you want to attract? Do you want the good thoughts? Do you want the bad thoughts? And we all have a mix of both. So it's not to say, oh my God, now I know my thoughts, I am a terrible person. It's not the case. This is for us to realize that there is a mechanism that is explainable and we can study and change what's happening, right? So let us think of good thoughts. Let us replace the bad thoughts with good thoughts. You know, let us think about it on a daily basis. Let us be, you know, give ourselves a pat on the back if we do a good job one day. And let us, you know, forgive the days that we don't do that great. And those days are normal. It's a back and forth.
Alright, friends. So let us move to a real fluid. So in our minds, sometimes it's very hard for us to imagine the fluid cosmic universal as fluid because we can't see. So here is the pool of Bethesda. Just imagine, this is the fluid cosmic universal. There you go, there, dip yourself inside for the healing. Because since the healing is not a miracle, it comes from the inside, we're going to learn about this healing that happened in Bethesda. That like in the past, this place, I'm going to show where it is. It's prettier, this one. Here is exactly where is the pool. Nowadays, there is the ruinings of the pool. Interesting is that now when you go there, you don't see exactly how it is, because in the past, in the ancient age, they used to, something goes broken and doesn't work anymore, they will build something on top, on top, on top, on top. And now, when they were trying to find the pool of Bethesda, they're 30 meters underground. Where was the pool?
Wow.
Because many other construction like churches were building into there. So you cannot see how it is. But because in the past they used to build stuff on top of the other, so you can see as it is. So what was this pool? This pool were places where people would go and have like a spa to feel good. Because in the past, in that time, there was many pools that people would go to feel regenerated. Because by then, like, they had the physical fluids, thinking they're like, oh, this immersions into water cleans me, make me feel good. And many people were going to this place and getting healed, right? So the story is like, the water will be into movement, and the first person going to the water will be healed. Because that's what happened one time. And as we know, there is no miracle. So where is the miracle happening? Inside of us. So Jesus, once he was going to this place, because 3 times a year they used to go to that place to pray to God. And as Jesus traveled many places, and like there is a phrase that they say, the saint of the house doesn't make miracle in your town. So the same thing happened to Jesus. So he had to travel to many places and show every place is a little bit of healing, just to touch people and showing like the healing is inside of you and God is with you. So that's why the healing happens. It's not because you go to some place, maybe we can go to the SSV and you go there and people there is going to heal you. But that's not true. That's not what happened. You can go any center, any healing place that you say you're going to be healed. But if you're not open, not prepared, not willing to do the healing, nothing is going to happen. So the thing is, you need to prepare, pure yourself to be ready to receive the purification, the healing from Jesus, from God. So this is the place, and Jesus in his travel, he went to this place, and he saw like many people there trying to get treatment, get the healing. But it's important to go back in time, that this place was not a church in the past. It was actually one of pools that one of the gods at the time built for the people to go and be cleansed, because for them it was very important to go and have the cleansing once a year before you go to church, before you go sacrifice animals to God. So this place was supposed to be a place where everything was pretty. But when Jesus got there and when you realized who were there, it was all people like sick. Many types of sick people were there, blind, people that couldn't walk,
Like he's gonna show the healing of a person that couldn't move for many years and was right there waiting for the healing to happen, but nothing could happen because he couldn't move. So in our mind, let's think like, am I like this person, this man that were there waiting for the miracle to happen? Am I just like stagnating in the same place, waiting for something to happen, like Palloma just mentioned? If you stay home just praying to God, something's gonna happen? No, you need to act. You need to do something to get the healing. So Jesus were there, and he could heal many of them, but the specific man that was sitting there for a long time, Jesus looked at him kindly, as the book here explained to us. I must read book. It has all the details about the healing cases, and this one they say that Jesus looked in the eyes of the man and asked him, "Do you want to be healed?" And when Jesus is asking him, the first thing that he comes up and says is like, "But I can't," because in his mind he has to go into the water to be healed. And he were being there for years, and nobody will stop to help him to go into the water to get healed. So he said, "No, I can't get healed because I cannot make to the water in time to receive the healing." And then Jesus asked him again, "Do you want to be healed?" And then he's like, "Wait a second, why is he asking me again? Like I already told him, like I can't do it." And then Jesus said like, "Yes, you can." You know, they have that inner, the fluid exchange, talking like Jesus went to this man because he was ready to be healed. He has the connection with God. The only thing he was mysticized, thinking that if he goes to the pool, that's where he's going to be healed. But like Jesus like pointing out to him, you don't need to go there. You need to decide if you want to be healed. Because as we know, many times we go to centers and go to places trying to receive the healing, trying to receive a message, trying to go to the right place. And what happens then? They give us advice because the spirits come through them and tell us. Friends, family, people are angels in our life. We need just to listen very clearly what they're telling us. So when they come to us and say something, there's some good angels, but they might try to put us in the right direction. So here, like I'm coming to the center, all the directions that we're going to be receiving here is going to be good. So then you need to take this to your mind, go to your home, as in the other case, you go and think, well, what did they say at the center? Is that applicable to me? Do I need to make any change in my life in order to receive the healing into my life and see different? So we need to really, really be careful and analyze if we really want to be healed. Because sometimes we come and ask for help, but it's easy just to stay in the same life. Don't make any change. So if we don't make any change, the result's going to be the same. So always it will be the same. So that's why Jesus asked, "Do you want to be healed?" And he's asking us today, do you want to be healed? I have books in English for you guys to have the message and see what you need to be changing in your life. And don't be paralyzed. There are many tools that God and Jesus is giving to us. Jesus is the biggest tool in the world that we could receive. He came here and gave all the examples that we could be following. And as we say, every step of the way, every person that comes in front of us, we should ask, how Jesus would like me to help this person? Because we always need to be helping the other person. And very important to help to our body. Like the first thing that we need to be taking care of while we are here on earth is our body. And as we learn many times coming here to the center, we are enslaving our body. We don't listen. We give bad food. We work extra. We don't respect how we should be treating our body. And this is making us paralyzed. We cannot go forward because we come and listen, but we don't do the change. We come and listen, but we don't do the change. So we are paralyzed, not doing the healing. And let's always think and connect with Jesus, connect with the higher spirits. What do I need? What do I need to do in order to change? How I'm going to start this healing process in my life? I know it's not easy. I know it's hard. And I'm just like this man standing there for how many years? Let's see, I'm going to the center for 6 years. Maybe I'm paralyzed for 6 years, going to the center, listening, and not making any change. How many lives are we living like that? Coming and repeating the same old mistakes, paralyzed, and not making any change. So this life, we're being called to make the change, to make this healing. And Jesus is asking you right now, do you want to be healed? I'm sure people came here not for fun. Something hurts inside. Something needs to be changed. So knowing that you are coming here not for fun, what is the next step to do? You're enforcing all the time, learning. Go study, read the books so you can change how you see your perspective, because examples will show you, oh yeah, this is going to come up. Oh, now I know what I could be doing. So let us remember, just like this healing in Bethesda, right next to us. Just kidding. Like it happened with this man. Let's pretend it's just next to us. We're going there and we're going to receive this healing. Because Jesus is right here. He's right here with us. We just need to really know if we want to make the change and go for it. Do what it needs to be done to heal yourself. Because it's beautiful. And it's not a miracle. It just depends on us. How fast, how slow we're going to do the healing process. And to finalize and go into the next part, when you're receiving the passes, connect with this higher energy, with God, and be open. Open your heart to receive what you need. I don't know what you need, but you know, and God knows deep inside what you really need. And just remember, Jesus still heals us. With all the examples, with all the books and missionaries that come to earth, this is proof of loving to us. So let us be in the right, our high thoughts, and be open to receive. And hopefully from today on, we are not paralyzed anymore.
The other day, a friend of mine who lives in São Paulo, she was visiting a healing Spiritist center, a healing session at a Spiritist center. She said, Vanessa, I spent 6 hours until they were able to see me. Comparing to that, we're good. So I'm just saying. Can you imagine 6 hours? Wow. And everything's so far away. And We are not far away from each other at all. So, based on all this knowledge, are you amazed about this book? It's amazing. And we only summarized 3 chapters, bits of the 3 chapters. Can you imagine? No wonder Kardec was a missionary. So we encourage everybody to read, study, and if you want to study together, starting January, Saturday at 11 a.m., we're going to have our course on Spiritism here at the SSPA. And if you can't come, we have an option in DC at 11 a.m. every Sunday. 2 options, huh? 2 options. And if you can't go anywhere because you're traveling near Delaware, on Tuesdays, right? Starting next week at 7 p.m. Kara is going to be there, starting that study group Tuesday, 7 p.m. in Delaware. 3 options. And if you're in Richmond, okay, on Wednesdays, right, Sheyne and Eric?
7 p.m.
At 7 p.m. They are now studying the Spirit's book. You can stop by. Okay, and of course, if you're in Maryland, there are other options, right? Lee and Sylvie, there are other options in the centers in Maryland. But we're just saying, there are options to study together, and together is always good. We love groups, we love Spiritist groups, and we're looking forward to more groups in the world. So it's good to do teamwork effort, and Kardec certainly worked that way. So Jesus may stay with us. Now this second part before we have lunch, the good spirits have assigned this task to all of us. We have been preparing ourselves to deliver the spiritual treatment. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to turn off the projector, and we are going to form a semicircle here with the first row chairs. And people who are already prepared to do the work will be seated around. There will be a chair in the middle. You stay where you are. But remember what we said. We can be part of it. Though you'll be waiting for your turn, you can meanwhile practice the giving of your heart, emanating, and the good spirits will count on you as well. Okay? And you'll be receiving, I think, do we have enough? The cards, yeah, hopefully we do. Usually when we do the spiritual treatment and it's individualized, at the end there is a card, and we have been using this since we were the Spirits out of Baltimore. Thank you, Palloma. There's a little card. Right now we are prescribing lessons from the book Happy Life by Jonas Diagenes, as a message that correlates to that changing of the mental village for us. Okay? If you have any questions during lunchtime, we'll be here. Okay? And since we have so don't worry, we'll be able to answer to your questions or talk and enjoy each other's presence. Okay? So let us be ready and prepare for this part.